Welcome to another episode of The Core, another great one to highlight the importance of diversity in our industry, especially in line up with International Women's Day. So thank you for joining me. This one's really special because it's talking to someone that you might not get to actually ever get to speak to or see at Core to Cloud. Robyn sits behind the curtains. She writes all our technical blogs, has a big influence on the tone of voice and what we put out there. And hopefully you can understand from her background why she was a perfect fit to Cloud. This podcast is really important for us about the idea of having different voices in the room, but also through writing and how that voice can really help people to engage with cybersecurity. The podcast episode really looks into the critical role of having women and how women play the part in technology and why their voice really matters and the message that they can bring. So I really hope you enjoy the latest episode. Hello, Robyn. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. It's been a very long time since me and you have spoke face to face.
Yes, it has.
But for the contents of our audience, not many people get to hear from the voice behind our copy, I guess.
Yeah,
that's really nice. So if anyone doesn't know, we're very lucky and supported by Robyn and the team by Hello Creative that do all our copy. And you have been working for us over how long now?
I think it's over 2 years now.
I was going to say yes, that's even more scary. And you were brought in really because we wanted to push our technical expertise, but still kind of keep the voice of Core to Cloud, which was quite a hard merger. But Robyn, could you give me a bit of background of how you've ended up where you are now? Because you have had a technical career already.
Yeah, of course. So I actually started out in the big wide world doing geography. That was my initial degree.
No one starts in cyber or tech, so that's a good
start. No. And I had an accident in 2014 and I actually lost a lot of my useful vision.
Oh.
I sadly fell down the stairs and I became pretty unemployable within the UK very quickly. Kind of at a time in my career where I was trying to understand where I fitted in the world and kind of what I wanted to do in this world and that kind of thing. So during my rehab, I sat on the sofa for probably almost a year, watched Friends on repeat, as you do.
I mean, that's great, but...
Yeah, and I actually went to the Prince's Trust in Stoke.
Okay.
And they were showcasing me different tech and how I can kind of get back into the working world and that kind of thing. And a lot of the software was pretty rubbish for screen reading and things like that at the time. So I kind of started getting into my tech kind of groove and my path into this world because of that, really. And I started to self-learn to code, kind of how I could support different levels of tech and software within the disability side, really. And then, amazingly, I've got quite a lot of sight back during my kind of rehabilitation. And I suddenly realized that I could make a difference by learning how to improve software, make things more accessible for people, allow people to connect with tech in different ways and that kind of stuff. So I went back to school, which is a theme within my life, and kind of learned computer science and programming for software development.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how it kind of started. I
like that though. That was such a passionate why, and also how technology could have such a positive impact. Because I guess at the time you weren't sure whether your visibility would come back.
So I actually, I see the world in a different way than most people. I don't see a lot of color anymore and things like that. So I just needed a way to access back, like the software, the systems that we all interact with in general when it comes to work, really. Because I was never meant to do nothing, really, like that kind of thing.
So obviously the Prince's Trust thing was quite a turning point. Was that off your own back? You thought, right, Prince's Trust, or was there someone that recommended that? Or
so I was very lucky to be supported by the Royal National Institute of the Blind at the time, and they suggested that I just started to talk to people again. I became a bit of a recluse, didn't really know what was going on, bit of a low time. Yeah. So then when I actually had the opportunity to connect with people and see that I could start on whatever path life had changed for me, I was just like, yeah, let's go, let's run with this, let's move with this. And so yeah, and it was really good. And I was very lucky with who I got to spoke to there. They didn't treat me any differently.
Having the right person in front of you is such a big point. Like all the women that I've spoken to, or even the men that I've spoken to of getting into this career, it seems to be certain people right there at the right time, giving them a hand, or even giving them a vision, or helping them with studies that has allowed them to progress. And if they hadn't had that person there, then they may not have entered the industry, and the place would be a much sadder place, obviously.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was your technical. You finished uni, you did your computer science. Then what happened in your career?
So I went into kind of low level kind of dev jobs at various places, and then I kind of ended up in a security situation, and I was improving the interaction and the UI kind of design of how customers log in to their like cybersecurity platforms and things like that, and improving the understanding that they could access the data and understand what the cyber security solution that they chose was actually doing for them. And I got pretty burnt out actually within my software role. It was a lot of pressure, not a very loving, nurturing environment. I was embedded far too deep into Slack channels, Scrum situations, some sort of agile approach here and there. And I ended up...
And is that how this kind of company communicated in Slack?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't the best.
No.
We were very segmented. There wasn't much kind of communication. But my love for it never changed. Like, I love making complicated things simple and accessible and understandable and tangible. Like, why are you paying for this? Well, you can log in, you can see why it's doing this for you, that kind of stuff. And I ended up kind of going sideways in what I wanted to do in life, because I'd actually moved as well into kind of marketing technology and kind of things like automations, APIs, CRM delivery, segmentation, all that kind of beautiful tech stuff that lives with underneath marketing. And the
bit that I'm not good at. The bit that's really, really, really important and been a massive learning curve for me in my career, because I thought when you left uni, I just got to put something on social media and make it pretty, and that was the end.
So because that can't live in a vacuum. It has to go into a system. So that's where I kind of transitioned out of, because I was still using my my kind of computer science background, my understanding of connections and how you can fill gaps with things like API and things like that and get more out of your marketing. So I kind of went that way, but took my like coding brain and my understanding and experience with me.
Love that.
And I ended up living in Sweden. I reconnected with my now husband, George, who had
a love story too. This is lovely. I didn't realize you were in Sweden because of love.
Well, there's only two reasons you end up here. It's work or love. There's nothing in between. It's a cold country. I'm built for the beach. But we connected. We went to school when we were 16, went off, did our own thing, and then reconnected at a friend's party, and he had moved out here. So I kind of followed him, doing my own kind of thing. And I had a virtual assistance company at the time, so I kind of gone out on my own, doing like the tech stuff for people and those kind of automations, funnels, marketing tech. And then COVID happened and Brexit happened, and we ended up having our own marketing tech agency out here. And that's what I kind of do now, and which is why I met Stephanie, who had this mega roll out. It was like, do you want to come write really cool content for this like cybersecurity company who's doing it a little bit differently? And I was like, me please. Me. And that's how I kind of got to here, and like knowing Core to Cloud and creating content that is consumable, understandable, and a little bit fun, as much as cybersecurity can be fun.
Yeah, but you got us quite like straight away. I think that was the most refreshing thing when you were brought onto the team, because I joined Quarter Cloud with no technical background, didn't come from the industry, and I just remember going around all the time, the meetings, meeting our customers, and all these acronyms and things being used and all
Mm.
this stuff, and I'd sit there like, oh my god, none of this makes sense. And I was like, could someone explain this to me in layman terms? And as soon as they did, I was like, oh well, I can
Get it?
understand that. Like I
That's
can
why we
actually
do that.
yeah, I can actually understand it. And then the more I
Yeah.
got into the industry, I realized there is a variety of understanding. There
Hmm.
are some people that are highly technical. There are some people that are very good project managers, but aren't highly technical. There's such a variety
Yes.
that making it accessible. And I also think make cybersecurity more accessible for everyone means that we can do a better job.
Yes.
I think when you make it so complicated, you sit there, thinking, oh, like I can't have any impact. I can't improve this because I don't understand. Like a bit
Hmm.
like even if you think about global warming and how scary that is, if we all bury our head in the sand, then nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
It was a bit like that with cybersecurity for me. I was like, if you make this so complicated, how is everyone going to be able to make an impact on the business? And unfortunately, everyone is part of the cybersecurity, whether you're
Yes. Everyone
whatever
has a
role,
responsibility.
yeah, whether how junior, senior, you have an impact on it. So yeah, it kind of clicked when you came along. So that was lovely.
And honestly, it's a joy because I think Quarter Cloud honestly approaches the idea behind cybersecurity in a totally different way. It is no longer the elephant in the room. It's not the ghost in the corner. It's something that you have to understand, you have to acknowledge is there, but then you also have this great holistic solution because your portfolio is so vast that you can go, actually, this could help. These are the opportunities that you have to fortify your data and your assets, and
Yeah.
that's understandable by everybody.
Mm.
And that was what was so refreshing for me, coming from a incredibly male dominated cybersecurity experience within my initial development career, to then a company which is a breath of fresh air was a joy. Like yeah, and I get to write really cool blogs which are like about the Hunger Games and cybersecurity, and like when rom-coms go rogue, and I have this like new rhetoric with people, so
Yes.
my mum can understand it, my
Yeah.
granny can understand it, and that's different for me.
And also I think it like if a new acronym comes out and all of us are going like, oh, what's that one stand for? Sometimes it's embarrassing to put your hand up and say what that means. But like I like to think that you can come on to ours, read our content and go,
Hmm.
okay, Quarter Cloud has explained that. I can go into my meeting quite
Yeah.
confidently
Yeah.
about that. You've highlighted that when you started in this industry, there was a low representation of women. I mean, we know
Hmm.
the statistic is improving, but that is still there and there's still barriers. Why do you think that there women aren't getting involved in the tech industry as much as we'd like?
I think there's a couple of reasons, and there's some very obvious ones. So it's like access to education. When I was going through like high school, college, and things like that, and then looking at my university choices through my initial
Yeah.
kind of journey through education, I would say I'm now like a burnt out, like clever kid. So I was told to kind of go for math, science, and then throw in something kind of soft, like which was geography. And
I like that
there
you
was
say soft as geography. For me, that would have been hard. Mine was all art, creative, drama. I was good at
but again,
English, but yeah,
I feel that still a lot of stereotypes within
massively.
education that are compounded in so many ways.
Mm.
And I had no idea I could go into IT or tech. My IT lessons, God bless the school that I came from, were like, open a Word document,
Did you then play
type
on
in.
MSN? That's what I did. I opened the Word
Or
document, write hello.
Minesweeper.
Yeah,
Like, we just spent hours like
you didn't.
at a computer, not learning about the tech or the connections to the wider world,
I
or
was going
even
to say that your trigger to go into tech was because there was like a bigger need, like a bit
Yes.
like a value, a moral compass thing, that you had a life-changing thing and you identified that how tech could make your life better or
Yeah.
other people's better. I think when you look at a uni course, it doesn't it just tells you the curriculum. It doesn't tell you
Exactly.
the impact you could have on the
Yeah.
world if you learn this subject and where you can take it. And like with me with cybersecurity, ultimately, I was freelancing. Someone told me they were a cool company and up and coming and they needed a marketeer. I knew nothing about cybersecurity,
Hmm.
didn't think it was me, but I thought I'd try it. And it wasn't until I met our customers, and most of them were the NHS, and they were telling me the implications, the impact of
Yeah.
me when I had my daughter, whether it would have gone okay, like all these sort of things. Would they have had my data, bloods, blah blah blah? And the answer with WannaCry was probably not. Um, then you're like, oh my gosh, then I can have an impact on this.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. And I think that's different in education. They don't show the bigger picture. It's kind of like a tick box exercise. You need to do GCSE maths because you need that to be able to get into college, that you need to then go to university. There's not really a moral thing. They don't tap into what drives a kid or what
No, and I
inspires
think
them.
they lose this connection. Like, I love education. Like, I
Mm.
have 4 masters, PhD, and I think I have 4 degrees now. And I will completely, continually go to learn, because now I know where I sit and why I'm learning that to
Mhm.
enhance my career, to
Mhm.
have a better impact for my clients, to get a better marketing ROI for them through their automations, all that juicy, good stuff.
Yeah.
When I was actually going through initially choosing my degree, I was told just to do something I was good at. It's not, I don't use anything I learned in that initial degree. Like, it was a waste of like 2 years of my life that I could have been on a better career path if
Yeah.
someone had connected me with the purpose of jobs, the purpose of educational choice, and allowing me to test out different things. We don't get to do that. I
No,
could be an amazing bricklayer. I have no idea. I've never done it.
that's true.
Like, and people could be amazing developers, but they potentially don't do actually very well within
And I
traditional
I
school.
think COVID, where you saw people take on DIY hobbies
Yeah,
or different things or things that they had the time to test. Some people actually realized that and created whole new businesses or lives
yeah.
because they
They
actually had that
pivoted
downtime.
totally.
Yeah,
Mhm.
or they did a course because they were like, actually, it's always been on my to-do list. I've got nothing to do in the evenings and I'm bored of Netflix. I'm going to do that course.
Yeah.
And people can change their careers. What coming from a very male dominated industry, what power do you think a woman's perspective could have or does have when it's in the room?
I think we have this wonderful ability to take in the overview, the bigger picture of things.
Mm.
I often found, especially within like software development initially, was that people would go down and off in these tangents and not understand things because it was a very male dominated experience. They were bringing their experiences, so that when they were getting like feedback from users that this needed to change or we needed to implement this, they were interpreting it in only one way. So I actually saw like a degradation of software because there was no diversity in a team. And I was like banging my head against a wall going, actually, it could mean this, or we could like, they actually don't want any of this technical terminology. Let's take away all of that terminology and just give them really gorgeous graphs, and
Yeah.
so they can visually understand what they're paying for. And I also found as well that it was a certain age within each level of
Mm.
like developer, team lead, like scrum master. And what I found that even if something wasn't working, we were still trugging through the same processes. So there was no innovation in the software, and there was no innovation in the creation of that software. So a lot of the stuff that actually went out the other end was like a reskinned of what's already out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a problem at the moment, that it's quite like software is a very diluted, it's it's a full field, the software for everything.
Yeah.
And you need to have different experiences, different cultures, different ages, different levels of understanding to bring new things into software. and
And
the
everyone's
creation
user
of things.
experience is very different, isn't it? Of how
Yeah.
or how or why they use something. I'm interested in reading a book at the moment about why brands grow. And it's basically destroying my whole degree. Like it's just killing
Yeah.
every book about how the data sources are too small. What this is
Yeah.
based on is
Yeah.
too limited.
Mm-hmm.
This is someone's perspective. They've made
Yeah.
that work. And then they'll go, did you know that the research paper was actually funded by their company?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then you're like, God, my whole degree is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you don't learn and you don't grow and you don't pick up a different book and you don't analyze it, you repeat because that's what you've been told to do, and you stay things. And if you're not learning something or going through the pain or the challenge, or someone could have been on your team that had experienced this and gone, oh, by the way, we went that way and that bombed.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're about to
Mm-hmm.
make the same mistake. I do also think, I think certain personalities are happier with change.
Yeah.
Or more happy to do that. And I think sometimes you need that in the mix. And I'm not saying that's male or female. I think sometimes, not humans like to be in a safe, comfortable space. And I
Yes.
get that. So sometimes having different voices on the table, your level of comfort is in different areas. So someone might feel comfortable in that while you might be freaking out, but someone on your team. But if you're of the same background, experience, age, you're all going to stay in your comfort zone, and that's not good. That is, it's bad for a business, and I get why you do that. All humans do that, and that's why the diversity helps.
Yeah, and this ability, like I say, to overlook and take other like feelings, experiences, or just look at things slightly differently. I went to like work like freelance for a couple of big tech companies, doing various bits of coding and creation and development. And one company that I worked for had this most glorious team lead. She was like, she looked like Miss Trunchable. That's the
Ooh.
only way that I can like describe her. Like you wouldn't cross her, but she was the most welcoming human ever. So throughout that, I only stayed there for like 4 or 5 months, but I think I did my most like professional growth
With her.
by her challenging me, but in the most safe way continuously. She was like, yeah, but why? Yeah,
Mm,
okay, but why? Tell me why. And I'd not been in any situation up until that point where I could tell you my why, or
right.
I could ask for feedback on my why, that I wanted to do something differently, or approach like a user issue in a different way.
Mm,
And she was glorious. And she then allowed me to go to different places, to then go to other people. Yeah, but why? But it'd be a safe feedback space, like
Interesting you say that. Yeah, but why? Because we get squashed that as a child.
yeah.
I'm thinking as my daughter, she is always okay, but why?
Yeah.
But why are we doing that? But why am I having a snack at this time? But why do I have to go to bed at 7 o'clock? But why do I have to wear pajamas? And we squash it out of kids. We do. We do. And we do it at school because you get the reports back and it's like, she's very intelligent, but she talks too much or she asks too much many questions. And I
Mm.
had the same thing all the time. Like, she would do better if she stopped asking so many questions and just cracked on with it. But you're just saying your personal growth and career growth was because someone allowed you to keep asking the why.
Because it wasn't just black or white anymore. I had space to
Mm,
create, I had space to dream, I had space to look at further afield at how what I was doing within my development role would impact people. So if I had an inkling or a niggle that actually the way that we were pushing the piece of software forward wasn't fulfilling the user needs, the bugs that we were seeing, the outputs, the problems, we should be able to have a space where we can ask why, and to kind of revert back on that. I mean, I've been in projects where we have spent hours, days, months, weeks trying to fix the same bug, but we're never getting there because we don't ask why we're not getting there. We just try again. We just try again. We just try again. And yeah, I think having diversity in a team will give those much nicer spaces to get experience, to question experience as well. Just because you've done that for all your life in that way, is that actually relevant, the most relevant for right now? And that's how I try and
You can think that about like anything though,
Yeah.
right? Of our history, like, you know, it's madness to think that in my childhood people could smoke in restaurants. It's
Or on
even
a
madder,
plane. Like,
yeah, on a plane.
yeah.
Like you think back again, you're allowed to smoke on a plane. Like,
Hmm.
and my daughters growing up wouldn't even be even heard of.
Hmm.
I mean, vaping is a whole nother conversation, but like these things that, you know, people would have done, like, I think, wasn't it like, I think my mum was told to drink Guinness when she was pregnant with me because the
Hmm.
iron was down, or I mean, even the time that I was pregnant, I could eat soft eggs, but by the time I couldn't eat soft eggs with Evie, but by the time had Isaac, I could. And I was like,
Hmm.
well, what happened in like 3
Yeah.
years? Like,
Like,
what happened? So I think even, you know, anything, we assume something. We thought the earth was flat, right?
yeah.
I think if we sit on an assumption that we know and that's the right answer, and that's because it's always been done like that, innovation would never have happened. We would still be riding on horses, and we'd, you know, a good or bad. I know people have different opinions of that, but we would still be where we are. And I don't think we're like that by nature as human beings. Otherwise, we'd still be in
No.
caves.
And from my experience, though, I've always had to shout the loudest or the
Okay.
most, or create a way where individuals weren't threatened by, I'm trying to say this in the most PG way
Of
possible,
course.
that were not threatened by the question why.
Do you think
Or
it's harder to ask the question, why were you the only woman in the room?
absolutely, because no matter my experience, my education level, where I'd come from before, I still got like demoralizing language that I was a woman. I still got like stupid memes sent to me about like,
No.
yeah, like if I was like annoyed or things like that, I'd be asked if I was on my period and
Yeah,
all
that's
that kind
classic.
of stuff.
Is it the time of the month?
Yeah, and I'm
No,
just
you're just
like,
annoying me. I don't need to be
yeah,
on the time of the month.
yeah. To
Just
be
annoying.
honest, it's just a Thursday. Like, do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Ah,
But and this kind of thing is it's still actually prevalent now. I'm in like the marketing tech kind of role because I often join as an add-on to an organization to improve
cool,
and
yeah.
that kind of thing. And a lot of the Slack channel kind of conversations aren't the most positive. Like there's like I think there's still that like stereotype, that like detrimental kind of terminology that I have quite a thick skin. I've built that over the years, but I'm still soft on the inside. So I still go home and think about it, if you
Oh,
know what I
and women
mean.
do. I think we swirl that around our heads far more than we let on as
Yeah,
well.
and I still like I lie in bed at night and I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and I'll think about a Slack channel conversation I've had 4 years ago. But
Why do
like
you do that, by the way? I always do that, like, or something I did, or a night
it
out
just
that I
comes
did,
back
and I'm like,
randomly.
oh, did I do that on a night out? Yeah, I did when I was
Yeah.
21. I feel
Oh
bad
yeah, the
about it
beer
again.
fear is a total
Yes,
thing.
massive thing. I thought it was just me, but the more women I've
No.
spoken to, I'm like, oh, okay, we all do that.
No, it's definitely a curse we have.
Women do
And
that.
yeah, and I think this detrimental language that still floats around male dominated areas
Yeah.
is incredibly debilitating. Imagine if you're fresh out of learning like how to, I don't know, JavaScript, and you've gone into your first role and
Yeah.
you're making mistakes because that's what your first role teaches you, that like
Yeah.
real life is different than your little coding block on your own laptop. And the detrimental language, the way that feedback is given. I mean, I've seen amazing women come and go from teams, and I've tried to be like a linchpin in the team and like a bit of an anchor. But if you're not if you're not able to try and brush it off and things like that, then it becomes too much, and you will then leave.
And why should they?
Exactly.
Why should you
Like,
brush it off? Like
and
that
then
shouldn't be
I've
acceptable,
only
really.
been in one all-female coding team,
Okay.
and it was actually for like a
Was that
period
good as
back.
well though? Because sometimes all women together, like this isn't a I hate men thing. This is like a balance of personality. Like all women together could be crazy.
But weirdly, I experienced the same problems
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
because we need choice, diversity,
Hmm.
different
Girls
voices.
can be way bitchier as well. Like they can be savage if they
That
want to
that
be.
Slack channel also wasn't brilliant,
No,
but
in a different perspective, right?
yeah, and I do think that without this like fair representation within cybersecurity, within any tech role, IT teams and things like that, we will always be putting ourselves at danger because there will always be things that have been overlooked, pushed back, and they probably should have been brought more forward within creation or innovation within our sector, really.
You're now moved into a technical writing role. Do you see the importance? Because I think for me, when I did a lot of reading and when I read a lot of cybersecurity and some of the many well-respected places we learn about cybersecurity, predominantly it's written by men. And that's because of their experience, or they would have done their degrees, or they've been in the industry
Yes.
longer. I mean, even famously, the faces of the big tech companies are the Steve Jobs of the world, the Bill
Yeah.
Gates. I mean, it is changing with things like Bumble and stuff. But even so, even her rise to fame came with tarnish, and that she stole it
Yes.
from other places and
Yeah.
things like that, right? Which she's had to defend. So do you feel actually becoming a technical writer, because I'll be honest, like people that we connected with, predominantly people that probably did go back to Stephanie were men. Do you think there's a voice being missed, whether it's the internet, ebooks, magazines, by not having a female voice within the writing?
Yes, and I'm quite lucky because I have like two sides of my brain, so I can make the technical stuff fun, simple, accessible, tangible, take homeable to your grandma kind of thing. But it is often difficult because people are generally one or the other. So
Yeah.
people don't often see the purpose of making connections with technical descriptions, explanations, or case studies. Whereas actually, we should be able to write a kid's book about cybersecurity so that when they grow up, they're asking the right questions and
I love
changing their
that you said
passport.
that. We've just to butt into your conversation, we've so for anyone that works with us or a customer or a client and they have a new baby, we now ship out a cybersecurity book for babies and a baby grow that has next gen on the bum. Because we were
But it
saying that's
is
the chance to start reading to them straight away about it.
technical language, accessibility, and understanding should not be gate kept for people who understand things technically, because it'll be. I always bring my mum into it. Sorry, mum, when she listens to this, but it'll be my mum who goes into a team to work, who gets a phishing link and clicks it and impacts the whole organization.
100%.
It will be my mum. It will be my gran who goes into Sainsbury's, accesses the CAF Wi-Fi, and suddenly logs into her bank and can't access her funds anymore. It will be my gran. But if I gave them a technical white paper about the importance of like penetration testing within an organization or secure Wi-Fi or cloud technology, nothing. It would be like a tumbleweed flows past those lenses. There would be no connection. So I think when we have the opportunity to make anything accessible, we should. It should be allowed to be passed around like in an email to people, shared on social media, and people go, oh, I need to change my password more often. Because it's not only the responsibility, like you say, of the organizations that we serve and like you support within your portfolio, it's their team. It's the devices that they interact with at home. It's so much bigger.
Yeah.
And it should be on TikTok. It should be on YouTube Shorts. There should be podcasts that make people laugh and engaged. And we have to talk to all generations about the importance of their role within not only protecting themselves, but all of the infrastructures they move into and connect with.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm going to be very biased and say that females have that understanding of how to talk to different generations. We do that naturally within our different relationships, our roles within life, mothers, sisters, all that kind of stuff. People tend to talk to us in a different way. So I try and feed that back in the copy that we create. So you can share it with your gran, your nan, and like I sent my brother the Hunger Games one and he shared it around to X, Y, and Z because he's a touring musician. So he was showcasing it, doing various things. And that's the only way we can make actions memorable.
Yeah.
Is to
And when
connect
people
something.
create, I think we've seen the blog increase. I'm looking at Daniel opposite me, who looks after our content. And the ones that get clicked on the most are generally like things. I think Daniel wrote one about Oppenheimer and Barbie.
Mhm.
Lawrence wrote, or there was one on ChatGPT, actually, it was probably written by yourself. That there's lots of different ones that when someone understands the topic, it
Yeah.
starts their interest and then they start reading about it. But it's got to be something they can relate to at the beginning stage. And we're even seeing from our audience, which is generally more technical, they are still digesting the content that is probably being more relatable to their day to day.
And it
Yeah,
gives them the opportunity to talk about their roles and what they expect in different ways, because all of a sudden they're like, okay, actually we can make this more human. We can have a conversation over a subway about this rather than like a stern white table with some corporate lighting. Like it changes the vibe, the feeling, the connection. Cybersecurity is only going to get more and more important.
Oh, yeah.
um
The more we become digitally connected and everything in our world, from our Ring doorbells to our Amazon to our electrical fridges that order our food for
to
us,
logging into ChatGPT every day, like a lot of people do now.
yeah. And the
And
AI takeoff in
understanding.
marketing, like
Yeah.
how all that interconnects, even to use of like things like Grammarly and what is that tracking and what's that reading. Like we it's a whole new world that we're opening up for the good, but that comes with that barriers and things that we need to consider for our safety.
Yeah. And we all need to understand our responsibility and what we need to do to stay safe online, because that is where we are now, online, in all realms. Like,
Is there any particular women now that you follow, or it might not even be women actually, anyone that you follow or respect or have been good influences in like the next phase, like you're learning?
I tend to follow as many people I can within certain fields. So
Mm.
instead of following an individual, I will go on LinkedIn and I'll type in a certain term or
Okay.
something I want more from. And I do judge people on the comments that they get. Like,
Okay.
and if it's only men that comment, or or looks like bots have all gone, yay, well done, Brian. I probably won't connect with that. But I
Yeah.
try and keep as broad as possible, because what I tend to find is if somebody rises to like almost fame within a sector, it's for one thing. They do one thing really well. It's not a broad overview of the sector. So I try and make sure that I see things from all sides whenever I'm looking. But I try not to get too deep in Reddit. I try, and my biggest love is actually going to events and connecting with,
Interesting. So you still like seeing people in person?
because I think you can feel like their passion, their joy, especially when you're looking at vendors and choosing vendors to collaborate with or discuss with or even offer. I think how they present themselves is a big indicator of
Yeah,
their position
it's interesting
within.
because we find as a company, like for marketing stats, that if we see someone in person, meet them, bring where in whatever way of life, even if it's taking them for a coffee, that person far more engaged and works with us far quicker than through any other marketing form, digitally, podcasts. They're all
Because
important.
we still crave that connection.
Yeah,
And then we'll go back and we'll Google you and we
totally.
will like search your social media and I'll have a look at what you posted 3 years ago
How
just
they
to make
lived it.
sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I think marketing has changed in that way.
yeah.
It's like it's a connection first, and then people go and research and compare, obviously, and then they but yeah, I find that too. If I meet somebody, talk to them, go through what I can offer, then that is when people like stick with me for a while, I would say.
What do you think is the path forward for a potential change to encourage more people or diverse people into our industry?
Whew. That's a big question, Kelly.
Sorry.
I honestly think it's to do with recruitment and how
Okay.
recruitment is dealt with
Mm,
within these kind of roles and projects and things like that. Because I've gone through recruitment processes where I was given so many tests that
yeah.
I felt like I was like applying to join NASA. But
Yeah.
then I've also been in a room where it was so informal that I didn't feel particularly wanted.
Okay.
Um, And I've never really felt understood within a recruitment position as a woman. I was once asked if I was going to have a child. I was once asked if I needed any specific requirements. It's just because those sectors, those organizations probably don't interview many women overall. So yeah, I think it's recruitment.
Yeah. And there's not many women have gone through the industry or been in those roles. It's they're preempting something they probably don't even need to preempt, right?
Yeah. Well, I always remember how like NASA sent like somebody, like was it a woman to space with 100 tampons for only a few days? And I always think it's like that kind of like
she'd be having a really bad day if she got a 100. That's all I'm saying.
Really big nosebleed, like. But
maybe it was not even for her. Maybe they've identified another way that tampons help.
Potentially, but I always think it's quite funny that happened, and I think there's that unpreparedness, the unpreparedness of like companies to even look at their recruitment strategies, and especially now because there's so many people trying to get into different roles. There's been a lot of tech layoffs within big organizations and things like that we really need to start looking at how we protect those that support organizations and sectors to create these amazing pieces of software and pieces of cybersecurity. We need to be protected.
Yeah, and that's for diversity. Of course, I did a really great podcast on like neurodiversity and the fact that generally people going into tech may have different requirements or needs, and the traditional recruitment or the traditional office settings may not be everyone's cup of tea. You know, like most of our tech team do work from home. They're not in the office as much as like the marketing and sales guys, but that's because the marketing and sales guys kind of like need that, and then and everyone's different. It's being able to identify people's needs and requirements. And some days, you know, even a marketeer is a bit tired and doesn't want to be with everybody. Can I go and sit and create or write or be in a park? Or, you know, everyone has different needs and learning. So I think that's important. A closing, that's not a word. A closing tradition of the podcast is to ask our guest why you would encourage anyone to join the cybersecurity industry.
Okay. I think, honestly, it's from my point of view, I all of a sudden recognized that this sector was important in all aspects of my life. So when I log onto my bank, when I work within a team, when I work hybrid in a different office than my normal office, there's all opportunities that my data, my security, my everything I work with and for can be taken away from me. And I think by being a part of a sector that you can then impact that for is incredibly powerful for me. As you can probably tell, I work very much from the heart. I will never be a millionaire, Kelly. Give far too much away. But for me, it was being able to be a part of something that served a really big purpose within all sectors, all experiences, and keep people safe overall, as cliche as that probably sounds.
No, that's lovely. And as a reason of why we all do it. And I think that's why you've connected so well with us as a company, because we feel like we all come from the same place, trying to do the same thing. Definitely trying to protect. That is the most important thing. Robyn, thank you so much for joining the podcast. If anyone would like to connect with you, whether that's help with technical writing, or maybe they're also looking at automation and trying to get their head around their marketing data, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can always find me on LinkedIn or a good Reddit thread. But so LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to find me, and you just use my name to find me there.
Perfect. We will put the link on the podcast. How fun was it talking to Robyn? And I really enjoyed that. Like she said, probably could have talked to her forever and about anything, about Sainsbury's or all our shopping, and NASA and tampons. Who knew? But that was a good little episode. So I think we've highlighted the essential importance of having a woman's voice in the future of technology and what that looks like. And hopefully that we can champion diversity, not here at Core to Cloud, but with everyone listening, and we can start breaking some barriers and hopefully removing some nasty Slack chats, because that seems to have had pretty negative impact on Robyn. So I hope you found this episode insightful. I hope you reach out to her, especially if you're looking for a technical writer or any help with your data, because I for sure will be making sure that we're using our data in the most impactful way. But thank you, Robyn. We hope you come back on, and thank you for always bringing light to our copy and our blog posts, which we are forever grateful. Thank you so much again for you listening. I hope you enjoyed this extra episode that we put on, all in part of International Women's Day. As always, please do follow, subscribe, add your comments, and if you would like to be a guest, do let us know. Otherwise, I look forward to hearing, seeing, and making sure you enjoy the next episode of the Core Podcast.